Jerry's speech is getting comfortable with visual aids. This is one of the projects that you may encounter. His title is Identification of Bees. Amount of timer, 13 to 15 minutes, please. Jerry. Please enjoy your presentation.
Thank you. I also have a new clicker, so we're going to have fun. Anyhow, yes. Anyhow, I want you to know this presentation I'm doing tonight it's a trial for me because it's going to be on the internet. And my company is going to put that on, and I'll do the voiceover, and it'll be put on there on a weekly basis. I've got an educational part of my company that's coming live, and that's part of it. And I will be putting that to work, bringing in revenue, and spending more money. But no, nevertheless, I want you to know that because I'm timing myself on this. Not to make it too fast, too slow. Sometimes I get carried away and we don't get anything done. However, what we're going to do is, of course, that's me. I'm a speaker, I'm a real good guy. So there. Now, the agenda, what I'm going to try and follow is that what is the honeybee identification? Without an identification, you get in all kinds of trouble. Because you don't know what you're dealing with, you don't know what they're going to do, or what you have to do to prevent them from spreading or causing people a lot of problems. That's why it's important. Right now, there's probably a couple hundred people out there trying to do what I do. And I would say that maybe 1% that know what they're doing. They cause a lot of problems. They will cause damage, they will cause people getting hurt, because of themselves to get hurt, because they just don't know. I spent 40 years doing everything probably the wrong way, at least once. Because that way, I know I've done it right. If I don't get it wrong, how would I know it's right? So, we'll move on from there. The European honeybee and its traits. They all have traits. All these little creatures have their own little personalities. The Africanized honeybee and its traits, completely different from the European. The honeybee myths and propaganda. And of course, my honeybee delicate. Move. Move. Okay, what is an identification? If the honeybee from the west coast of the United States is much different. It gets me phone calls than I was expecting.
This would be the Sergeant of Arms telling us to please silence your cell phones.
Anyhow, it's a time that we're going to the west coast of North America. The European honeybee is completely different. Some of the myths is that it's dying out. We're going to lose all our food. No, we're not. It's not even from the United States. It's from Europe. And it didn't get here in 1700. The behavior, they all have, you can really tell what they're going to do, how they do it, and why they do it, if you're educated. And I have spent 40 years educating myself. Finding the nest location, that's a special thing. We have equipment now that helps a lot. I used to have to find it just by what I have here. And I could find it. I know exactly where they were and exactly what I had to do to take it out. That's why my company's been so strong, because that's not an easy trick to do. Here is the honeybee. The thing is to determine which bee is what. Now, those are all the same bees. But their physical characteristics are different, the behavior is different, and the nest location is also different. Now, physical characteristics now, there are our bees. Do you know there are 2,000 species of bees in the United States alone? And you know this one, where is it? This one here and that one up there, and another one called the mason bee outperforms our honeybee with pollination by about 100%. It's fantastic. It works. The only problem is now it's a singular bee. In other words, it doesn't have a beehive. It has a nest. It lays one egg, and there's the one female. The bumblebee up here is almost extinct. They say that the stress that's been put on them by the other creatures and the food supply that they have, and the fact that farmers are losing their land, and the pollination is not needed as much. they don't have enough food to get by, so they're almost extinct. Where's the joke, the pumpkin joke? Here's a squash bee right there. Right there on top. This one, longhorn bee, this is a amazing thing. Longhorn yellow-faced bee, that is in Hawaii. It's a Hawaiian bee, and it's in almost extinct. Problem. That's the bee that's going out real quick. Of course, there's a digger bee. He digs holes and puts his eggs in the ground. They all have their own little thing. Carpenter bee, destructive son of a gun. He gets up there and he comes into your wood on your house and he drills a hole in it that way, turn that way and drill a tunnel that way, and come back, put an egg down here, pollen and honey, another egg, pollen and honey, another egg. When they hatch, they chew their way out. I have a 2x6 at home, 2 inches wide, 6 inches that way. You look at it, there's a hole about that size like thumb. Turn the thing over, it's a shell. There's no wood left. They completely destroyed it. I've actually pulled wood off the building. It's a big 2x4 to pull the thing off because there's nothing to it. That's what carpenter bees do. And they sting, but very rare. They scare you worse than anything else. They fly in and they're very loud. The rest of them, they're high pitched. The bumblebee, on the other hand, it's I like the bumblebee. Why? It's dumb. It flies into the land, come into land, and you have other bumblebees there. They don't stop. You're in the way of their landing strip, they wipe you out. And you're falling all over the place, they buzz into each other, and they go back to work. They're funny. Why is it important to know about this? You have to know the identification. You have to know who they are to know what to do. These bees have many, many things. You got to identify if they're stinging, whether they sting or not. You've got, well, 2,000 that don't have stingers. Not all of them have stingers. Maybe 1% have stingers. There's a bee in South America, looks just like them. You can jump it, it doesn't have a stinger. And that's why we have the African bees, because they were being replaced by the South American group. The nesting patterns, you must know that, because when they start to move, you got to know why they're moving. They move because they lose communication in the hive, and there's too many bees in there, so they split. The old queen leaves, the new queen takes over, she mates, she done takes over. That's the nesting pattern. You'll understand the potential threat when these things get in your wall, and as a real estate person, this is something you should know about. If they have a beehive in the wall, there's more likely mold in that wall. And with the honey in there, you also have rats, cockroaches, ants, and various sort of insects. Now, if you leave them in there, let's say you call it an exterminator, and you just kill the bees, which you have to do in your walls, and leave the honeycomb in there, it'll drip, and it'll run down your walls, come out under your carpets. It's a mess, and very, very expensive to take out. There are more effective and efficient ways to remove it. We come in, I spot where it is, we judge how big it is, we open the wall, we take it out. We clean it, we put the insulation in the walls to make sure that there's no room for them to go back in there. We'll cover that with plastic, and we'll call in either stucco man, drywall man, finish the job. And there's my favorite thing, to avoid legal penalties. That costs money. I don't like legal penalties. And if you do it enough, they'll pull your license. And if you pull my license, my company's out of order, out of business. The negative publicity is terrible. You get out there, you work. You make a mistake, you got the news media all over you, and you have to be able to explain your way out of it and calm everybody down. If you don't, you'll spend a lot of time trying to get away from that publicity. Of course, the customer service, if the experience of the customer is not a good one, if the customer is not happy, if a customer is disgruntled for whatever reason, you dare not leave them alone. You must go to them and find out why, what you have to do to calm them down. Otherwise, that will spread like wildfire. And next thing you know, you've got a terrible reputation and you start losing business. What about the honeybees? There it is. There she is. The entire hive, by the way, is female. Except for about 25 to 100 drones. drones, they're males, they're only kept for mating. And the queen, the rest of them are all workers, but they're all female. And the only fertile one in there is the queen. And the flying insects, they closely, they're the fascinating thing, that's a Hymenoptera, is four wings. The wasp was the original. And from the wasp morphed out the honeybee and yellow jackets. They are all related, same family, same genesis. They're found on every continent of the earth except Antarctica, and it's too cold and no flowers. They live on nectar and pollen. It's their entire diet. The honeybees, well, see, you got to be careful of that statement because you say without honeybees, pollination would not be the same. It is true. They do. They're very fast. They a lot of them. But they're not the number one pollinators. We have hundreds of them, a lot of pollinators. And 1/3 of the food supply depends on insect. The word is insect population, not bees. Insect. Bees, they have a tongue that's called proboscis. Comes out and it's actually split. And it's almost, I'd say, almost half the size of his body because it goes down inside the flower and pulls out the nectar. And I haven't licked my finger once. It hurt me terribly because I just killed the whole hive. And he sat there and licked my finger and it cracked. Anyhow, it allows them to bring the nectar from within the blossoms. It's a long way down. It's got to have a straw type mechanism to get to it. Honeybees are social insects. They live in colonies. They're social to a point. They don't like other bees, but within themselves they have a social structure. There's workers. There's the people. The people. They are insects that take care of the young, feed the young, clean the hive. They protect the hive, and then you have the workers. That's their social structure, and that never changes. The hive population consists of a single queen, about 100 drones, and thousands, literally thousands, up to 50,000 bees inside of a beehive. That's how you get in trouble, is you run into that there. That's my guy. That's probably a male. You see the eyes? That's his eyes right here. He has his large eyes for one reason, to find the queen. Interesting, I don't know if you want to hear that, the same one here, but now, Apis mellifera, that's this one. They all have Latin names. That's why we don't get along. We can't communicate, but they speak in Latin. The major identifier is a fuzzy body. You see, looks like fuzz all over its body. And it's gold and black. It has stripes. And it has pollen sacs on its legs. When it goes into a flower, it'll come out, pollen goes in there. And you'll see them, they come into they'll have their back legs just, they look like cowboy chaps, actually. Big, huge sacs there, and it's coming in, and it deposits that inside the hive. It's part of their food. Now you get 3 types of bee in there. I just said that a while ago. It's the female, the worker, the drone, it's the male, and the queen. And the defensive scale on 1 to 10 is about 7, which says they're dangerous, but they're not really terrible. Come on, you go. There's your 3 types of honeybee. There's the worker. You just left me. Why'd you leave me? There's the worker. The worker is the smallest of the group. The drone that comes along is non-reproductive. They have barbed stingers. They lose that stinger in their skin, and it pulls their insides out and pull away, and so it dies. They measure about 1/2 inch. They live about 5 weeks. And then, of course, they're responsible for everything. Isn't that right about the females? Aren't they always responsible for everything? They do the feeding of the larvae, that's the baby bees. Tending to the queen, they clean the hive. They are very, very clean creatures. They don't allow dead bodies laying around. They throw them out on the ground. They collect food. They guard the colony. They build honeycomb. They die after they sting because stingers in the skin. Drone, chubby little dude, that's the male. He has no stinger. He goes, he mates with the queen, and I don't know if I'll get to the slides, I'll say it now. They go up in mass, up in the air. The queen then flies up through them. She will not mate with her own. She only mates with males from another tribe. The theory behind that is that they have their own type of genes, and they don't want to mix them. So they want to spread their colony all over the place. So the males will mate with other females from other tribes. And they live up to 90 days. Their only job is to mate with the queen. They usually die. They get killed. And that's going to wind me up, and I'm going to run out of time here, but they are tremendously great creatures, and they do have a sting. But that's the African, they're here. They're not, they are very, very dangerous on a scale of 1 to 10, 9. So you have to be very careful with them. And thank you for the time. Where's my person that's going to relate? Thank you.
Thank you.